Today, I want to discuss something that really made a total huge, it was a revelation actually for my own awakening, and actually began to allow the the mind to quieten down and love to emerge. And I hear it from many people, and I heard it again this morning in a conversation with someone. And it just struck me how much it applied to me also. And this is fundamental to how we're coming to our awakening and how much we're able to live as this infinite reality. There only is one being that is infinite, and it's experiencing itself through 8 billion human forms and an infinite number of other thought forms, and it will never stop experiencing itself in different ways. But when it experiences itself as a human being, it gets all kinds of confused. It begins to have the capacity to discern and evaluate and compare. And of course, all species have that in a very simplistic way. Is this friend or foe? Should I run towards this or away from it? And very much our own fight or flight mechanism is still evident today in the way that we are as human beings. And this discernment mechanism has developed to such a capacity in the human way of thinking that it's begun to function not just for protection of the physical body, but for protection of the psychological body, the mental body, the idea that we have about ourselves. Should I like this person or not like this person? Should I try to make friends with them or avoid them? Are they criticizing me, or am I just imagining, and it's on and on, isn't it? The mind is constantly in evaluation and comparison through just the way it works. It very basically sorts everything into two categories: that which is good and wanted, helpful for me, and that which is bad or unwanted or unhelpful, or desired and undesired. And whether we realize it or not, we are still doing that even in our awakening journey for quite some time. We might even fit truth into the desired and wanted category, and illusion or the separate sense of self into the not wanted or bad category. And through no fault of its own, mind can't really stop doing that. It takes two things and evaluates, compares and weighs and measures. And we can use this tool for our spiritual discernment, but at some point we have to step away from that, not rejecting it, but stepping away, because it'll probably be fairly obvious at this point that your mind's way of trying to make sure that you're happy and safe and feeling loved and awakening to truth is not really that effective for permanent, stable freedom, joy, peace, and all of that. And that's really because the mind works in duality. He would even compare the separate sense of self with the infinite self. If such a thing was even possible, he really believes there's a separate self and tries to compare it to the infinite self. Just that very comparison is distorting our perception of reality, because the imagined separate self is just a bunch of thoughts and the resulting emotions and the reflection of those stories and emotions and as their experiences in our life. And all that's happening inside the infinite self that we are. So there's nothing to compare to. Mind is a representation of this infinite self. It's a form that has coagulated itself inside or condensed itself from formlessness into form inside the infinite intangibility that you are. And so it's not really that good at navigating reality, and we have thought it was, right? We have thought it had the answers to this. And really, it doesn't actually have all the information. It doesn't have the capacity to actually see anything. It thinks about something, and it thinks about it in terms of comparison and duality. And you can see, if you just kind of watch your thoughts for a while, you can see the mind mechanism going on. Even now, as I'm talking, it might be assessing this information, going, is this useful, valuable? Do I understand it or not? If there's understanding, it might conclude that you're doing a good job, and so am I. If there's lack of understanding rather, and confusion is present, it might be concluding that you're not good enough, you should be able to understand, or that I'm not good enough and I should be able to express it better. But it's always this kind of comparison mechanism, right, that's going on. And again, it can't do anything other than that. So mind is talking about you or me or anyone based on a predetermined set of criteria for what is good and wanted and what is bad and not wanted. So everything that happens to us, our mind is holding it up against these two definitions and labeling it as one or the other, and it never changes that definition, that label. It doesn't have the autonomy to do that changing process on its own, something that you have to do to help it. And the reason I'm saying all this is because I've heard this a couple of times over the last few days, and especially again this morning, 2 or 3 times this morning even, people telling me that they feel attacked by the mind, or criticized by the mind, or that the thoughts and the judgments are coming at us from the mind's perspective, that mind is critical and harsh towards us. And I remember in my own awakening a time when that seemed so true. It seemed that I would never be free of my mind. I couldn't even imagine a time when it would be quiet, or even say anything positive, actually, anything other than hateful or hurtful of myself. And there was something that shifted that was fundamental to allowing the mind to turn towards more loving thoughts and more kind, accepting thoughts. It was clear that it could not do it as things were. And there was this one idea that I was really subscribing to, that when I began to see it wasn't true, everything changed. And it is this, that the mind, or the sense that we have that the mind is attacking me, that I'm in a battle with my mind for supremacy, that there's a tug of war going on with attention for I either listen to the mind or I listen to my real nature, my silent self. And that mind is being utterly critical of me, and because of that, I'm pushing it away. I'm feeling resistance to it. And somehow we've come to view awakening as this battle, this last stand, this final showdown, where finally, somehow, some way, through some spiritual practice, I'm going to win this battle. We might even imagine that's what awakened beings have done. And I know I had that sense. I was always looking for the one thing they'd done, the shortcut that allowed them to finally sneak up behind the mind and, whack, and it was all done. But it never happened. In fact, it got worse. And the self-hatred thoughts were pretty constant, as I'm sure a lot of people could imagine and have experienced. And so finally I realized, what if I'm actually not at war with my mind? What if I'm watching it attack itself? I don't want to get into I've had people talk to me about ego and super ego and, this, that, and the other, and 27 layers of this egoic sense of self. And I really don't want to get into that because it just made it more complicated and divided to me. But it was clear that there was two parts of my mind, a bunch of ideas, thoughts. So it's not an alive entity, the mind, it's a collection of thoughts. Thoughts about who it thought I am and where it thought I was at in my awakening. And then the other bunch of thoughts were where it thought I should be. So where mind thinks I am and where it thinks I should be. And these were very different collections of thoughts, very different frequency. And because of that, there was a lot of friction between. So this group of thoughts is talking to this group of thoughts. And then this group of thoughts is telling this group of thoughts what to do. And the mind is convinced it's talking to me. As I started to experience who I actually am, it became clear that it's talking in me and not to me. It's not talking to me. And this is why its advice had been largely negative, because it had kept on trying to have this conversation, not knowing it was talking to itself and that it was disconnected from reality. Thoughts talking about thoughts has nothing to do with actual reality, through no fault of its own. Mind was developed from a very simplistic mechanism that was meant to make a quick judgment of whether to run away from something or towards it, or to try to eat it or mate with it in a very simplistic level. And somehow it's been given the job of running the whole office. And it's doing the best it can, thinking it's actually able to perceive the whole office. It's sat in one little desk in a corner, and it's sending out memos all the time, and constantly trying to match its ideas up with what it thinks is happening. And all of this is only meant to elicit compassion for the mind. It's chasing its own tail, and it has no idea it's chasing its own tail. It thinks it's talking to you, the infinite self. It thinks that you are in a process of awakening instead of already being that infinite spaciousness, consciousness, presence in which it's arising. It's caught in that trap. And it's doing its best because it's been instructed, you need to solve all of my problems, even this greatest problem of awakening. How do I awaken? Somehow we've, as a species, we've decided on some level that the mind has the answers that we're looking for. And what if it never did? And what if it doesn't know that? What if it keeps on trying and trying and trying? And when it can't seem to succeed, it starts to turn inward on itself. It can't really give up because it's sure that it's on the right track, and it's sure that it's perceiving reality. But it just ends up turning inwards and attacking itself. It thinks it's attacking you, but it's actually attacking itself. You are watching this from your real place, your real being that is unaffected. You're watching the mind do its thing. When I really sat with this and looked at it again, I began to really, how I felt about the mind shifted. Even that's not true. This part that was attacking itself began to just stop a little bit. I was still just watching. What it felt like experientially was something softened, and I stopped imagining that I was at war with it. It was resisting its own self, trying to tear itself apart and put itself back together again and again and again. And it would keep on doing that forever if we never realized. And the great love that you are, the great acceptance that you already are, that which is aware of all phenomena, whether the mind would label them positive, negative, good, evil, all of it. Loving thoughts and hateful thoughts. The self that you are is love, and it is loving all of this right now. So there was a huge shift, slowly at first, but it began to really gather momentum. And it was compassion. I never knew that I was capable of such compassion until I saw this loop, and that it was desperately trying to fulfill my expectations of it, imagining that it could fulfill them, solve the problems. And then to see even clearer, those problems don't actually really exist in reality. Imagined problems trying to be solved by an imagined entity that thinks it is able to perceive reality. No wonder it hasn't really worked out that well, right? And is it your mind's fault? Is it anyone's fault? Or is it just an outcome of the capacity to discern and to evaluate deepening? Is it just something that developed with our brains as the complexity of our human brains took shape? And maybe it's good for worldly situations. I'd like this job better than this one, and I'd like this restaurant tonight rather than, or I'd like to stay home rather than go out. I like tea rather than coffee, and on it goes. But in terms of awakening, it's the one thing it can never really have any objective, no pun intended, opinion of. It can't see the forest. It's looking at one tree only, and it's totally focused on one tree, and it's lost, not even lost sight of the forest it can't see. It's looking at one tree in the forest, trying to pick which one it is. It's this one. And it has no capacity to encompass the larger aspect of who you really are. This, for me, there's such compassion developed and a real love for the mind and how it has always tried to fulfill what I thought I needed and wanted. Even this greatest desire of all, to recognize who I really am and to live like that. And somehow with me seeing that it's at war with itself and not that I'm at war with it, and watching this fragmented little bit of mind try to fix itself. Somehow with that seeing that I was already just watching, there was such a love that emerged for the mind, a recognition that it is doing the best it can. And no wonder it's kind of got a little tangled up and bitter and twisted, because it's trying to achieve this thing that it doesn't know it can't do. And in that there was a softening. I began to experience the power of real, undivided, non-dual love. That whichever way a phenomenon is appearing and arising, it is loved because of its existence. Just as we all are. I don't even need my mind to solve any problems for me to lovingly accept it's here. And in this rich understanding that began to sprout out of the heart, there was a capacity to love the mind's goalpost that it would set for me. You know, this is where you need to be. You're here right now and you need to be over here. And then as soon as you reach over here, it moves them again, right? It moves the goalposts again. And mine became more like a friend, because I wasn't pushing against it, and it wasn't pushing against itself. What if one thought could splinter the entire mind? like distort its capacity completely to perceive reality. One thought that I am this body only, I am this one tree in the forest. It has the capacity then to fracture its whole experience. How could we ever see anything clearly when we think we are just one tiny object in a vast universe? And nothing could be further from the truth, right? Nothing could be more opposite than what's actually true. You are the universe and the source of it. And I began to experience my mind as being just a little misguided or uninformed or limited. Asking the mind to solve my problems and make sure I'm good enough and all of that. It's just like asking the software on my computer to run my life. It's just a predetermined set of rules, isn't it? A program, very much like the mind. So if these words are penetrating something inside, you can just decide today to try to make friends with your mind. Understanding that it's not at war with you. It's at war with itself. It can't even see. The mind is just a bunch of thoughts. So it can't see that you are not your mind. You can see that. You can see that you're aware of thoughts. But the mind can't see that. It's not sentient of its own. You can see, wow, I'm before thoughts. I'm aware of them. And I'm still here when they go. And then mind might parrot that back to us. I am aware of thoughts, it says. But it's not an intelligent conclusion from mind, is it? It's an outpouring of the wisdom of the self. It couldn't do that on its own, the mind. So two ideas became, or realizations became pivotal. The recognition, I'm not my mind. It's a tool that's arising inside me. Secondly, that my mind is always going to think it's me. It can't see what, number one, it can't see that it's a vehicle or a tool I'm using. It thinks it's me. Your mind thinks it's you. That's why something always listens to it, right? Something inside goes, yeah, when it's critical, it kind of deflates something inside. And when it says nice things, well, yeah, it kind of get puffed up and elevated for a little while. And you're watching both of those. You're watching as awareness, both of those. And there are a lot of spiritual teachings that have this quite negative view of the mind or the ego as being the root of all evil, even, and the source of every struggle in our life. And then we develop this spiritual culture in non-dual circles, especially, that the mind is something to be eliminated or destroyed or crushed or totally rejected. And that's only the perspective coming from inside the mind or the ego. Only the ego or the mind, using those words synonymously, would want to destroy itself. You are the creator of all forms, including the mind, and you are so in love with everything that you perceive. Such love that you are able to let it arise exactly as it is, with no capacity or desire to change it. You love so freely that you let things arise exactly as they arise. And you don't have it within you to say that should not be how it is. The mind says that. You don't have any capacity to say should or shouldn't about anything. It's all happening in the mind. You are celebrating every form, whether it's a thought, a tree, a human body, an amoeba, a speck of dust, a black hole, all of it. So can you step back? Will you step back from feeling that you are at war with mind and that you have to eliminate it? What if the exact opposite is needed? What if you begin to realize that you are that love, that it's so desperately drawn to and needs? You are the warm fire and the hot cocoa, and it's freezing. It's freezing to death, right? And it just wants to come near to you, the self. It just wants loving understanding of itself. And as much as it wants to come close to you, it's also terrified of you because it thinks you are going to destroy it. It thinks you're going to crush it, annihilate it. And when I began to realize this, there was such compassion that began to emerge from mind as just being very, very limited, very but the very fact that it works in duality means it cannot know anything about you, that which is one. And as much as it would like to see truth, it can't. So what will you give to mind? When you let go of this idea that it's talking to you, immediately compassion develops. Immediately. Like a small child that's lost in a crowd and is really fretting and panicking. You take it by the hand and try to find their parents and try to make them feel better. Or an animal that's lost or trapped. You would do the same, right? So why treat our mind that way, unkindly? Well, you never have. You never have. It's the mind doing it to itself. And when you realize this, instantly you forgive yourself for everything you think you've ever done and everyone you've ever judged, apparently judged, because you never did. Not only is this freedom for the mind, it is total self-acceptance for you and a deep recognition of who you actually are and what that means. You are the sun that shines on everything equally. So freely do you give your loving compassion and attention that you allow any form to arise, take any shape, and you don't have the capacity to say no, or the desire. Infinite creation means infinite, right? Not the ones that suit the mind's definition of good. So how does this impact you as you're listening? What does it make you feel for the mind that perhaps you hadn't noticed or felt before? What if it's a tour guide for reality and it's working from the wrong map? Or a GPS that doesn't know where you're starting from or heading to. It just keeps telling you to continue. Peace, joy, contentment, clarity, and wisdom are all available in this moment when you embrace this. Why be so sure mind is fighting with you? Has that conclusion ever really worked out for us? What if it's not true? What if it's just accepted by all human beings, but has never actually been the case? It thinks it's talking to you, but what if it's actually talking to itself? Immediately then, there's some kind of distance, not distance as in hatred or aversion, but distance as in capacity to just observe it from a more loving perspective. And something just stops if you let it. Your insight and your clarity is the infinite self, that it's attacking itself. It allows a little bit of that wisdom to be infused into the mind. And mind might finally be able to have this thought. I remember this thought arising for the first time. I don't need to fix anything. And it was from the self, the infinite self. There's nothing for me to fix. But it was also from the mind too. The mind was like, it's not my job to have to sort all of this out. Somehow I thought it was. And there was such peace. Did you know you can actually love your mind into dissolution? Not annihilating it, but just dissolving it into a more fluid thing that's actually a useful vehicle, not this very rigid structure of thoughts. That this is about this and this is what I think about this, and I'm sure this is true, and just more fluid and a dissolution of the rigidity of the way we think is freedom. And it's available right now if you can fall in love with your mind. If I said that at the beginning of the satsang, perhaps we might have been sure that it was just not possible. But maybe now you might feel differently. Mind is just a software program that thinks it's an intelligent being. Perhaps not the best analogy now, because some of these software programs are more intelligent than I am. But you get the idea. So I'd like to invite you to fall in love with your mind, love it into dissolution.